Now to an On Your Side exclusive. You may remember this moment. Wrongfully accused, or rather convicted of murder, Nathan Myers and his uncle Clifford Williams, you just saw right there, they were kissing the ground to celebrate their release after 4 decades behind bars.
And since then, both men have pursued compensation. Peru's compensation is allowed by state law for their wrongful conviction. But just as that restitution seemed imminent, a decision by the state attorney general threatens to derail the process.
On Your Side's Ann Schindler has this exclusive report, all new tonight.
Nathan Myers is innocent.
The conviction of Mr. Williams and Mr. Myers should not stand.
That was the conclusion of a 10-month investigation by the state attorney's office, 2 circuit court judges, and a special master appointed by the Florida Senate. But a 6-page letter from the Attorney General's office says otherwise. The January 23rd letter obtained by First Coast News says Myers isn't entitled to restitution because he's not, quote, actually innocent. Innocence Project of Florida attorney Seth Miller says he was stunned by the letter. He said, quote, it's completely at odds with the decision of every court and prosecutor that has touched this case in the last year who found there is substantial credible evidence of actual innocence. In fact, Circuit Judge Meredith Carbala echoed this when she approved his request for compensation, saying his innocence was demonstrated by clear and convincing evidence. It's not clear what legal basis the Attorney General has to deny Myers' petition. Florida law gives judges the sole authority to determine if a defendant meets the definition of a wrongfully convicted person. A spokesperson for Attorney General Ashley Moody said Myers' claim, quote, does not meet the burden of proof required by law for wrongful compensation. Myers' lawyers say Nathan Myers is devastated, but they are examining their legal options. Ann Schindler, First Coast News, On Your Side.
Now, ironically, Myers' co-defendant and Uncle Clifford Williams was initially not entitled to compensation since state law bars anyone with a prior felony from collecting restitution. But a bill specifically drafted to provide the 77-year-old with compensation is now sailing through the legislature, and it is expected to be approved.